Hello and welcome to Twin Talk. This is Angie and I'm here with my sister Joy, and today we're going to be discussing the book Lion: A Long Way Home. Lion is a book by Saroo Brierley, and it's about a boy who got lost on a train in India at the age of 5, not knowing the name of his family or where he was from. He survived for weeks on the streets of Calcutta before being taken into an orphanage and adopted by a family in Australia. So, Joy, I'm sorry, I know I'm out of breath. I was just chasing some dogs, so sorry about that. So we were just discussing this right before we hit record, but you were telling me you have or have not read this book up until now.
No, I don't know why. My husband and I were just scrolling through the channels one night, and he's like, this looks like a really good movie, Lion. And so we watched the movie, and I was like, wow, that was a really powerful story. So I watched the movie. It's probably been a couple years ago. And then you told me your daughter Cambry was reading this at school and that maybe we should do this. And I was like, yeah, well, the movie was really good. I bet the book is really good. So I just read the book. So to answer your question, sorry, I'm rambling. To answer your question, I didn't read the book until a week ago.
Okay, yeah, and that is the reason I picked this book is because, so Cambry is doing online learning right now, and I had to go to the school to pick this library book up for her because they're getting ready to start reading it in about a week. And as soon as I saw it, it reminded me I had seen the trailer for the movie a few years back, and I remember thinking, oh, wow, that does look like a good movie. And then when you confirmed it was a good movie, I thought, oh, it's going to be a good book. Mm-hmm. And it was a pretty good book. What did you think about the book?
Yeah, I think because I had already seen the movie, I already knew everything that was going to happen, but I liked getting to read the more specific details of exactly how he got lost, and I really liked that the book went into after he discovered his family. Mm-hmm. I really liked that it really went into what life was kind of like after he reconnected with his original family.
Yes. Now, do you remember much about the movie? Was the book pretty similar to the movie?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was a few differences, but I mean, overall it told the same story.
Okay, so, to me, this story, it's pretty straightforward. It's basically about a little boy who gets lost in India. He has to survive on the streets for a few weeks, mm-hmm. and then, fortunately for him, someone takes him to the police, and they're able to help him. So I just thought we would just go through some of the highlights of the book. So on the train, that part was interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
He gets onto a train,
right,
and
he's just going to sleep, right?
Unwittingly. Well, this is what's funny is I just read the book a week or two, and I'm already forgetting some of the details.
Well, he's with his brother, and his brother has gone off to try. I think he's trying to make money,
mm-hmm.
and he's tired. It's late at night, and so he just. Little 5-year-old,
mm-hmm.
he doesn't know better. He gets on a train. It's like, oh, I'll just go in there. There's benches on that train. I'll just sleep. He lays down on the bench to get some sleep. Mm-hmm. Well, next thing you know, he wakes up and this train's moving and he doesn't, I'm with you. It's only been a week and I've already forgotten, but he doesn't know if it's been an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. He's been on this train and he starts panicking.
And I do remember the train made multiple stops and he would try to get off the train and he couldn't because all of the doors were locked.
Yeah, and one thing that's a mystery to me, and I think it's still a mystery to him, is why there was no one on the compartment he was in.
Mm-hmm.
He said maybe it was a service train and he didn't realize it, but the whole trip he's alone in this compartment, or one of the train compartments, and he mm-hmm. can't get out because the doors are locked, and there's not even a conductor,
mm-hmm.
So that is a mystery. So why there was no one on the train with him?
Right, and in his mind, he had only been on the train, like for 12 hours maybe,
mm-hmm.
and comes to find out. He literally was on it, didn't they say for...
Wasn't it closer to like 15 or 20 hours?
Or 24. It was a lot.
It was a lot longer, but, to his credit and his defense, like you said, mm-hmm. he's trying to remember things that happened when he was 5 years old, and, you got this kid who's scared to death. He's probably in panic/shock mode,
mm-hmm.
and his memories aren't going to be perfect of how long he was on the train and exactly what happened and everything.
Yeah, I was thinking, you have little kids today, like even my daughter, I think we got separated at Chuck E. Cheese one time for like 10 seconds.
Right.
And she was crying and scared,
Aww.
and I could see her. I couldn't get to her because of the crowd,
mm-hmm.
but I could see her sitting there crying, and I can't even imagine.
I can't either.
In a city, so in a country like India, some of these cities are so heavily populated.
Mm-hmm.
In the city that he actually ended up in, millions of people,
mm-hmm.
and then a lot of a lot of poverty and homeless people. So
Yeah, so it's not like here. If we saw a little kid, I think even in New York City or somewhere, I think in some of our biggest populated cities, I think someone would notice a little child that's lost and, crying or looking bewildered or looking scared. But in Calcutta, I think it's a whole different ballgame because they're used to seeing these homeless children on the street. They're used to seeing, poor little kids. He's just another face in the crowd.
To see kids begging too. And in my mind, I kept thinking, they're looking at, it's just another little beggar kid. That's what I kept thinking. Yeah, that's
what I kept thinking. It's just another little homeless beggar kid. Just ignore him.
Yeah, and so some of the most interesting parts of the book to me were the memories he had when he was on the streets just trying to survive.
Right.
And he was living down by a river during part of it, and then he almost drowned twice.
I love that story where the homeless man not only saves him once from drowning, but twice. And that just shows you how vulnerable and naive he was, that he got in that same water 2 times in a row, even though he almost drowned the first time.
Yeah.
And that homeless man, and like you said, he never had a chance to thank him. He couldn't even say his name today, but he thanked him in the book for saving his life twice. So that was really moving.
Yeah, and the other thing that I found really interesting was there was a man at one point in time who acted like he was going to help him, but there was something about the man he didn't trust. It was like his instincts kicked in, his survival instincts.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Even at 5 years old, he knew enough not to trust that man and to get away.
Yeah, so I thought that was fascinating at that age to know. To pick up on cues like that. So eventually, I kind of hate to just give too many details because if the listeners want to read this, you don't want to just tell them everything. But basically, he meets a teenage boy who basically takes him to the police. Yes. And then they in turn take him to, at the time he thought it was just like, he didn't know what it was, but it turned out it was really kind of like a juvenile detention type center. But then from there they took him to an orphanage, and then the stories that he tells within each of those places is pretty interesting as well. And then from there, he wasn't in the orphanage long, I don't think, before he got adopted by a couple from Australia.
Yeah, and I think he was very fortunate because according to the book, sometimes it takes years to get adopted, and it only took him months. So he was real fortunate that he got adopted so quickly.
Yes, and I emailed you one day last week, so from time to time we like to go through and see the listener locations, who's listening, and for some reason it's escaping my mind right now, but the couple that adopted him, they're from a little island off of the coast of Australia.
Tasmania.
Yeah, it was in the Tasmanian region, but more specifically, there's the name of the little town they live in.
I can't remember either, like Nauru or I can't remember either.
I can't remember, but anyway, one of our listeners is from that exact town where he grew up.
Yes, that is cool. Yeah. You said, does this city sound familiar? And I was like, Tasmanian devil? I don't know. What are you talking about? And you're like, hey, that's where the Australian couple was from that adopted Saroo. And I was like, oh, cool, and we're about to do that book.
Yeah, so I just thought...
If you're from Tasmania and you're listening, hey, leave a message on our voice pipe that's on our page. I would love to hear, because I would love to hear your accent. I don't care what they say. If they say anything at all, I love Australian accents.
Me too. I just happened to notice that location, and we were doing this book, so I just thought I would mention that. That is cool.
And one other thing I thought that was cool was on the audio book that we listened to, the narrator had, that Australian accent. So I just wonder how... if Saroo feels strange speaking around his family with that Australian accent when they speak, is it Hindi? I can't remember.
Oh, right.
But he probably doesn't feel weird because that's all he knows. But I wonder if his family's like, oh my gosh, he sounds so foreign and so different,
Yeah. So, and actually, you're kind of getting into something that to me was one of the most fascinating parts of the book, was the two separate cultures. He was born in this one type of culture, and he's raised in a completely Western culture, in Australia. So he, and fortunately for him, he's adopted by a very, very loving, good family.
Yeah, to me that was one of the most interesting parts of the book too, was reading about his adoptive parents, because they are incredible people. They decide not to have their own kids because there's such a need for orphan kids, and they adopt not just him but another boy. And really, I guess this story is as much about them as it is about Saroo.
Yeah, and so once he's there, even though he has a loving family, he grows up there, that's still just nagging on his mind, and of course it would, he just always wondering, where's my family, and worrying about him, because he knows that he's been on their mind all these years. They don't know what happened to him. He doesn't know what happened to them.
Right.
And so he goes on a pursuit of finding his family. He doesn't even know what town he lived in or what region he's from. He has no idea.
Well, to me, this is one of the most fascinating parts of the book is how he used Google Earth. Mm-hmm. And like he said, India is a huge country. He literally used Google Earth, and he followed the train tracks, all the ones that went out of Calcutta, and he just remembered certain landmarks, and it took him years. Mm-hmm. But he finally figured out through Google Earth what city he was probably from. And I just thought that part of the book alone was really interesting to me.
It's the old looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, it literally was.
And he kept talking about how he would spend hours upon hours every night in his bedroom, and his girlfriend would be like, "Are you doing that again?"
Mm-hmm.
But it was a quest. He was like, "I'm going to find my family." And then before you came over tonight, I was looking through the book. I didn't realize there were some pictures in the back of it. But in the back of the book, there are some Google Earth pictures, the actual pictures that he was looking at.
Cool.
And when you look at the Google Earth picture of like the water tower that he remembered as a child, it's true, Joy. I mean, I was like, no wonder it was a miracle that he found them, because, having to look, it's such a tiny, and looking at it from a bird's eye view, it's totally different than looking at it from
and
street
how
view.
many water towers there probably are by railroad tracks in India? That's crazy.
Yeah. So, and then, I'm not going to really get into it, but, he does find his family. He finds his mother and his brother and his sister. And to me, that was interesting, just going back to his, and him talking about his biological family versus his adoptive family. So, I don't know. It was just a good book.
Yeah, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. How many, I can't believe I didn't come up with a word rating. I think I'm slipping in my old age. Well, okay. Okay, I guess there's no way around this word rating. How many lines did you give this?
Well, I'm going to give it... This is tough because I love the story and it was well written. It was just very straightforward. I don't know. Can you give your word rating first?
Yeah, well, it's really hard because we're used to these novels.
Profound, beautiful writing.
Yes.
And this is such a powerful story. Yeah. And it's really well told.
Yeah. But
and
of course
I really
he's not going to be
enjoyed
describing the landscape. It's not about that.
Yeah, it's about his journey of finding being lost and finding his family. So... This is tough.
Yeah, it is, because...
I don't know how many lines to give it.
I don't either.
I highly recommend the book.
If you want a story of hope and, that happy endings, I guess you could say, I would give it a 5.
Yeah.
But as far as just a book that I just want to sit down and read, probably a 3.
Okay.
And it's nothing, and that has nothing to do with the content. I know people out there are hissing at me right now. That's about a boy who couldn't find his way home.
I know.
But as far as just something that I would just sit down and enjoy read, probably a 3.
I think I'm going to give it 4 lions.
Okay.
But I do highly recommend the book. I mean, it was very interesting. The story is amazing.
Yeah. And I feel like in our culture today, because we have so much and so many people in India and other countries have so little, I feel like it should be a mandatory read for all kids, for students.
That's why I was glad when you told me it was required reading for Cambry's class, and they're 7th graders. Well, apparently they've been doing this for several years, because I have students, I have students at the high school. Somehow this subject came up. I don't even remember. And I was like, oh, did you guys have to read line? They go, oh, yeah, we always read that in 7th grade. Okay. So for several years, it has been required reading. And it does make me... For 7th graders. So it makes me really happy, because this really does show the divide between the United States and India as far as education and poverty and things like that. So it's a real eye-opener. So I'm glad they're having to read it.
Yeah, I tell Cambry, I said, I don't want you skipping around and just trying to get by without reading this book. And she's like, why? I said, because it's really important, because I want you to see how fortunate you are, and how blessed we are here in the United States. So.
I agree.
Okay.
Good motherly advice.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you would like to add before we
No,
close?
read the book.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, and we will see you next time on Twin Talk.